Day 59, and Nancy Guthrie has completely vanished. Contractors are facing intense scrutiny right now. While major questions swirl about Nancy's back door remaining wide open, a local sheriff's deputy just got busted for abduction right where this missing woman was forcefully taken. Federal agents are currently hunting down overhead satellite imagery. Could these past-proven photos crack the case wide open? Plus, a highly suspicious vehicle emerged tonight. Welcome in, everyone. I am Nancy Grace, hosting Crime Stories, and I appreciate you tuning in. What is the deal with that rear entryway? This aligns perfectly with early theories suggesting the intruder breached the home from the back. However, that gruesome trail of blood proves the victim definitely exited through the front porch. Let us bring in our lead investigative journalist, Dave Mack. Detectives are currently zeroing in on multiple maintenance crews regarding the sudden disappearance of this beloved family woman. What is the latest update? We discovered several different people held authorized permission to enter the victim's house. Nancy. Specifically, an electrical contractor visited her. Someone arrived to completely swap out a massive breaker box, a huge project which took several days and numerous official requests to finish. This project happened right before the victim was brutally snatched. Heating and cooling technicians were apparently fixing the climate control setup inside her property for several consecutive weeks before the nightmare began. On February 1st, these guys supposedly had valid reasons to visit. So, law enforcement is aggressively tracking down every single one. Shout out to 12 News for providing this exact footage. Hold on. Dave Mack. Why call these guys completely official? Can you correctly name every single guy patching up the shingles on her roof? Are you absolutely certain they were all licensed professionals? Could they just be random temps grabbed from a nearby grocery plaza? You have absolutely zero proof of that. Why phrase it that way? I just meant their visiting purpose was totally valid. Their true identities remain completely unknown to us right now. Somebody could have easily hired an off-the-books worker for a quick cash gig. Nobody actually knows. The only proven fact is that official repair documents existed, but the actual crew remains a total mystery. Listen here, Dave Mack. An 84-year-old grandmother vanished without a trace. Phrasing matters. Phrasing is crucial. Let us welcome Brian Fitzgibbons, Operations Director for USP. A security aide. I must emphasize this point. His global task force successfully tracks down and rescues abducted victims, frequently pulling them straight out from Mexico. As a combat veteran, Brian, I assume this follows standard operating protocol. It would absolutely shock me if federal agents failed to immediately investigate the heating technicians and electrical crews. Alongside the roofing teams, we already knew about the gardeners. But these duct specialists are brand new. Spot on. The manhunt now includes anyone who stepped foot inside her home or handled repairs at any of the directly adjacent houses. That includes climate control repair experts, power line specialists, builders, and standard handymen. Federal agents will definitely scrutinize every single receipt, analyzing the exact time frames when each specific task was finished, while aggressively tracking down everyone physically present on the property to drag them into an interrogation room. Scott Aker helped launch the Federal Mobile Tracking Unit and previously worked as a special agent. He investigated Virginia murders for 12 years before joining an elite tracking firm. Do you agree that federal investigators locked onto these particular suspects instantly? They clearly vetted the yard crew right away, but now they are aggressively pursuing the ventilation technicians. Authorities already checked the power crews, yet these roofing and ventilation guys are suddenly grabbing attention. What is the exact reason? Whenever a major incident happens, thoroughly sweeping the surrounding block is just standard investigative procedure. Just knocking on adjacent doors is not enough. Detectives must carefully identify local regulars, temporary repair contractors, and even random relatives who simply happen to be visiting that exact street. Focusing strictly on local homeowners is a massive mistake. You absolutely must investigate every single individual lingering around the neighborhood before and during the actual abduction. Therefore, those maintenance crews become prime targets for questioning, something I regularly handled during my career. My squad would relentlessly hunt them down to thoroughly verify their alibis on the exact evening this horrible tragedy unfolded. Breaking news just confirmed they are looking way past the typical gardeners and local pool cleaners tonight. Detectives are currently putting intense pressure on the roofing and ventilation crews. Let us welcome Susanna Ryan, an elite forensic science director. She runs her own private crime laboratory, 25 years analyzing crime scenes and decoding biological evidence is no joke. Susanna, we highly appreciate your expertise today, because the initial step is always pure observation. By the second day, securing their genetic material becomes incredibly straightforward. Holding a judge's order, I would simply demand their sample right then and there. Administering the actual procedure wasn't my job, since testifying later would complicate things entirely. However, observing the entire collection process was my daily routine. Those vital samples went straight into evidence envelopes before receiving official signatures and heading off to the forensic technicians. What exactly is the protocol here? What is the absolute easiest way to gather genetic evidence from a maintenance technician? The procedure is incredibly straightforward. Professionals use a buccal swab to gently scrape the interior of the suspect's cheek. Gathering cellular material from the mouth provides an excellent biological profile. Drawing bodily fluids is completely unnecessary nowadays. The whole ordeal is completely painless. The investigator gently rubs the applicator inside the mouth, securing the crucial evidence immediately. Running the actual laboratory analysis might happen much later, particularly when unidentified genetic markers pop up during your investigation. Securing that sample is absolutely mandatory. Looking back at countless past investigations, contractors frequently become prime suspects. Though, I mean no disrespect. This certainly isn't a blanket statement condemning blue-collar professionals as criminals. However, my career involves numerous tragedies where service personnel completely abused their position. Exactly as our reporter mentioned earlier, they entered the residence legally, only to commit unthinkable atrocities against the innocent individuals residing inside. This terrifying possibility makes me wonder if a trusted worker intentionally tampered with the entryway. Someone could have easily jammed the lock, ensuring easy re-entry under the cover of darkness to abduct our victim. Every single contractor stepping onto that property needs testing immediately. Administering this oral procedure requires minimal effort. Our expert previously explained the straightforward tool involved. Authorities basically use an elongated cotton applicator to gather saliva. Self-administering these criminal checks is strictly prohibited. Unlike those pandemic-era nasal swabs you did at home, professionals handle the process to guarantee absolute precision. We could have processed at least 4 suspects just while discussing this topic. Moving on to a truly shocking development. Authorities just detained a local law enforcement officer for a terrifying abduction. Give us the horrifying details right now. Dave, a 22-year-old former officer named Travis Reynolds, supposedly committed this heinous crime while escorting a female detainee toward the local holding facility. This rogue cop openly objectified his prisoner with highly inappropriate slang, insinuating that, wait, pause the story. Those exact words are absolutely baffling to me. Did you literally just claim this sworn officer complimented her physical attractiveness? Are those your actual words? Fine. Proceed with this disturbing narrative about him judging her looks. Making crude remarks isn't technically a crime. Continue the timeline. And let's get serious here. He offered a sinister deal, and honestly, the underlying implications of this conversation completely sicken me. The deputy essentially proposed trading legal favors for a quick trip to a nearby motel. Unbelievable. Acting like a total creep. This is absolutely repulsive. My apologies. Please finish the timeline. Despite her clear distress regarding these advances, the perpetrator continued his relentless harassment all the way to the precinct. Instead of officially booking her upon arrival, this disgraceful public servant kept his victim trapped inside his patrol cruiser. They remained parked right there on the precinct lot, completely visible to the active security cameras monitoring the area. This agonizing ordeal lasted for 2 excruciating hours. The captive woman desperately watched other detainees entering the building, practically pleading with him to finally process her arrest. He flatly refused her requests to go inside. Over those 2 hours, this monster reportedly forced her to watch explicit adult material. The terrified victim strongly suspected the truth about those recordings. These were clearly amateur productions. So let me take a wild guess here. He was actually starring in them. Absolutely horrifying. Please summarize the rest of this rapidly, as the relevance is slipping away. Get right to the point. This disgraced former patrolman finally caught a massive abduction charge. Wait, didn't you omit the darkest detail about him demanding she expose herself before unlocking the doors? You are entirely correct about that vile extortion, and I completely missed mentioning it. After forcing her to comply with his sick demands, he finally brought the traumatized woman inside for processing. City authorities ultimately apprehended this corrupt county official, slapping him with severe abduction charges and setting bail at $200,000. All right, let me bring our psychiatric expert into this discussion immediately. Waiting on his video feed now. Seriously, what drives these guys to commit such horrific acts? Let me be brutally honest right out of the gate, watching a sworn cop exploit their badge. Like this absolutely turns my stomach. Trapping a helpless victim who literally cannot defend themselves, only to leverage that terrifying vulnerability to shamelessly extort twisted personal favors, crosses absolutely every single moral boundary we have. It thoroughly disgusts my soul. Their criminal signatures look totally distinct, meaning this suspect's routine hardly matches the horrific details surrounding Nancy Guthrie. Though investigators must still examine every angle, a predator willing to corner one local woman might easily strike again somewhere else. Although prosecutors haven't officially hit him with formal charges yet, detectives haven't officially labeled him a suspect regarding the Guthrie tragedy, and my instincts strongly suggest he played absolutely zero role there. Let us avoid forming an angry mob outside his residence tonight, but law enforcement still carries the burden of thoroughly investigating these bizarre shadows. You simply cannot turn a blind eye. Acre. Even though I firmly believe these two disturbing situations share zero ties to the Guthrie nightmare, throwing around a heavy word like kidnapping guarantees massive media explosions, especially considering this nightmare unfolded straight out of Puma County. Right now, however, I am utterly failing to spot a single shred of overlap with the ongoing Guthrie investigation. How do you view this? Fitz. We clearly agree. The true tragedy involves Puma County absorbing yet another completely brutal public relations beating across mainstream television networks, which stands completely separate from our mystery. However, this scandal inevitably drains massive administrative energy, forcing top brass across Puma County to pivot their focus entirely toward managing this fresh crisis. Officials must face relentless press inquiries while constantly battling hordes of aggressive attorneys. It simply creates another massive roadblock, derailing the primary mission of locating Mrs. Guthrie safely. Listen closely. Fitz, because your latest observation literally just fueled my upcoming sleep paralysis. My brain will obsess over this, perfectly fueling the classic some other dude defense strategy once we finally capture the monster, who undoubtedly happens to be male, assuming multiple guys aren't involved. Slippery lawyers will point fingers, shouting about this supposedly corrupt Puma County sheriff. They'll claim an active kidnapper hid inside the department, easily convincing a single gullible juror to abandon pure logic and chase wild conspiracy theories. You know, the implications are terrifying. You just nailed a brilliant angle, considering how rapidly complications snowball during incredibly chaotic investigations like our current ordeal. Any sharp defense lawyer holding this explosive bombshell will weaponize the department's shaky internal response to cast massive shadows of doubt upon everything. They will subpoena dispatch records, aggressively asking if this rogue cop ever set foot anywhere near the victim. Did he patrol her neighborhood for any obscure motive? Ultimately derailing the entire courtroom proceedings with absolute nonsense. Anyone currently relying heavily on plastic just to afford everyday essentials like supermarket runs or weekly fuel fill-ups, alongside monthly electricity statements, you are essentially trapped paying a brutal 20% survival premium. The experts at American Financing empower property owners to leverage house equity, eliminating crushing balances, using current mortgage rates, resting beautifully inside the fives. Typical clients slash roughly $800 from their budgets, keeping that $800 permanently every single cycle without paying any sneaky initial consultation fees. This matters tremendously because these professionals earn fixed incomes rather than chasing shady commission checks. Act now to potentially postpone a couple of upcoming cycles with American Financing, the premier national hub for residential lending. Dial 866-880-344 or visit americanfinancing.net/Nancy, and best of luck out there. We deeply appreciate your time tonight. Joe Scott Morgan, our resident crime scene analyst and esteemed academic teaching criminalistics over at Jacksonville State University. Listen, Joe Scott, we desperately need to dissect those bizarre clues scattered across Nancy Guthrie's porch, particularly that welcome rug you are so eager to analyze today. Viewers have examined the scattered gravel, random trash, and leaves covering the entryway. but my primary focus shifts entirely toward a specific pair of Ozark Trail sneakers. That exact brand truly matters here, considering the suspect carried a matching knapsack purchased from Walmart, making these footprints incredibly suspicious. Please analyze these specific sole patterns closely, contrasting those distinct grooves against the crimson stains splattered across the victim's stoop. Absolutely. Nancy, whenever you study this specific photograph, your brain immediately tries hunting down any recognizable geometric shapes hidden within those dark red smears. However, I must clarify up front that this particular snapshot showcasing the crimson spatter did not originate directly from official law enforcement files. A media insider leaked this material, meaning its visual clarity has likely undergone heavy digital processing compared to the raw documentation captured by field agents. This digital manipulation highlights microscopic textures beautifully, bringing us to the million-dollar question regarding its ultimate significance to the trial. Those minute details become crucial once we start matching them against the signature grooves of those budget sneakers. Everyone's unique gait wears down rubber, outsoles differently. So forensic teams initially attempt to classify the overall geometric style before digging any deeper. Do these visible ridges seemingly correspond with the shapes left behind within the crimson puddles? Does this visual evidence definitively align with the factory mold pressed into those specific bottoms? Because confirming a direct match changes absolutely everything. Finding the killer's footwear changes absolutely everything about this investigation right now. Investigators instantly run comparisons the second they pull boots off a prime suspect. Nancy, the absolute dead giveaway for matching these items always comes down to the scuffs and degradation. Everyone walks differently across the pavement. Do they step heavy on the back foot? Are they rolling their ankles outward? Experts analyze those specific habits because the camera captures every single gait abnormality perfectly. Let us pivot and discuss those Ozark Trail sneakers, since we spent hours reviewing various footwear brands just to match the unique tread designs left underneath. A sleuth posted this particular photograph over on the platform X recently. That was his direct phrasing. We can clearly view the sole design here. Please focus your attention directly on the physical Ozark Trail boot. We have a profile view of the male hiking sneaker right here. We need to measure this against the footage of our creeping suspect. Examine his feet closely. Joe Scott. Those kicks resemble the cheap Ozark models. Way more than your typical branded athletic sneakers boasting massive swooshes or flashy side stripes. Exactly. The tread leaves an incredibly unique signature behind. Nancy. So allow me to properly set the stage for how crucial this is. When the federal cyber specialists finally analyze this surveillance media, they will crop the exact frame, zero in on the suspect's boots, and dramatically upscale the visual clarity. The quality of this surveillance footage completely blows standard security recordings out of the water. I have reviewed countless cases involving footwear evidence before. Technicians can upscale this picture enough to definitively isolate the manufacturer logo and lock down highly unique product traits. Check out the front section of the footwear, where the bottom material distinctively curls upward to wrap around the toe box. Pay close attention to it. Next, observe that textured band, which appears slightly illuminated, assuming you can spot it clearly positioned around the back portion of the heel. That feature separates this exact brand. In the criminalistics field, Nancy. This leads us to a crucial concept. Experts rely heavily on a core concept known within our industry as individualization. The process involves linking manufactured goods directly back to one exact singular suspect. Once you combine every single physical characteristic and filter the raw data, investigators desperately hunt for undeniable traits, pointing directly to a solo perpetrator. What local retailers sold this exact footwear? Can we spot noticeable scuffing along the outer edges of the fabric? Once the visual upgrade finishes, the computerized clarification that federal authorities will generate should reveal completely undeniable characteristics. Pivoting back to the manufacturer details for a second. We previously analyzed the suspect's backpack. We analyzed the footwear thoroughly. Oh, definitely. Plus. We absolutely must discuss that visible firearm rig. Rumors circulated suggesting the gear originated from a big box retailer, bought digitally or picked up locally in person. Those represent three crucial pieces of evidence. Jose Morgan. Let us pivot to the ongoing rumors regarding biological fluid discovered just past Nancy Guthrie's main entryway. Should an entryway mat exist? A standard hallway runner sitting by the doorway is incredibly typical for most homes. Right. Dark carpet fibers easily camouflage crimson droplets from the naked eye during initial sweeps. What exact methods do forensic technicians use to extract potential fluid droplets from thick textile material? Honestly, investigators never remove the stains. That remains a brilliant inquiry. Extraction is completely off the table. Tampering ruins the sample. The primary goal is swabbing the fabric directly. Got it. The initial forensic step proves incredibly captivating. The audience will find this scientific process utterly intriguing. Once authorities transport the mat to their facilities, federal technicians or state scientists blast the fabric with highly specialized ultraviolet spectrums during their analysis. Basically, the laboratory team deploys advanced thermal imaging cameras to properly illuminate any hidden biological markers permanently trapped within those woven carpet threads. Does this immediately guarantee the fluid relates directly back to the attack on our victim? The evidence lacks absolute certainty. Regardless, locating bodily fluids at the crime scene remains a massive development. Let me stop you right there. Joe Scott. Step back into reality with the rest of us. Crimson stains cover the patio. Finding identical fluids right behind the entryway points to one obvious conclusion. Nobody nicks their ankle doing grooming out there. The incidents clearly overlap. A plausible alternative does exist. Perhaps a random medical issue caused a nasal hemorrhage that evening. Defense attorneys definitely push that exact narrative. Give me a break. A violent abduction occurs. Yet we are blaming the red stains on the patio on a coincidence. Are you seriously implying our victim just casually strolled past the main foyer on that exact evening and randomly started heavily hemorrhaging from her face? Obviously, the evidence correlates. Humor. My logic for a second here. Take a wild guess. The fluids match the timeline perfectly. Crimson stains coated the exterior entryway, mirroring the gruesome horror hidden just beyond that threshold. We need to discuss extracting microscopic genetic splatter from that indoor mat, assuming one exists near the foyer, since those detectives completely failed us, botching the initial breach. Because those droplets undoubtedly remain soaked into those fibers. Joe Scott. Which is exactly my point. God willing, investigators actually bagged and tagged those items immediately to secure a profile, though shouldn't such basic protocol be obvious to everyone? Look, stepping on the toes of an absolute expert in this field is hardly my intention. But frankly, praying they secured those fluid samples is a given. My apologies for jumping the gun while my brain races ahead. But bagging those stains is our top priority. Let me be perfectly clear about my primary concern right now. Those detectives better have confiscated the entryway mat leading into that residence. Except they absolutely failed to do so, leaving the evidence abandoned, right out there on the porch, which I noticed plain as day while reviewing the broadcast footage. The photographic evidence proves it was left behind. Nancy. And while investigators might have retrieved it eventually, they undeniably ignored it during the crucial initial sweep. Let me burst your bubble with another harsh reality. Those officers absolutely never returned for it. That material is likely gathering dust in the exact same spot right now. Joe Scott. Which perfectly explains why diving into this massive oversight was so vital to both of us. And quite frankly speaking, I would gladly run a basic training seminar for this department. Considering they clearly slept through the lecture on proper scene preservation during their initial walkthrough. Regarding whichever officers arrived 36 hours after the fact, I am desperately praying those latecomers possessed enough basic intelligence to actually secure the item. We can only pray they were smart enough to bag every single object beyond that threshold. Nancy, including any surrounding materials contaminating the interior flooring. Listen to me very closely. Time is our worst enemy here, and the sand has been steadily pouring through the hourglass for several consecutive weeks at this point. Their initial blunder was completely overlooking the suspect trampling heavily across that specific entry pad. So go ahead and roll that clip again. Display the security footage of his approach, showing the perpetrator literally planting his boots directly onto the surface, captured right there in the smart doorbell recording. You realize this constitutes a massively crucial clue. Nancy, especially since fluid transferred across the adjacent perimeter, remains completely invisible against the fabric itself. The reason is painfully obvious: the material is pitch black. Exposing those hidden droplets absolutely requires specific chemical reagents designed to create visual separation on dark backgrounds. Furthermore, I would bet my bottom dollar that biological materials soaked right into the welcome mat, leaving us to completely guess the horrific extent of the mess indoors. Exactly as you pointed out regarding the foyer. Assuming there is a textured rug positioned just inside the frame, acting as a typical spot designed for scraping off dirty boots, or possibly a hallway runner, which really gets your gears turning. Such surfaces are prime real estate for biological transfer, immediately triggering massive red flags for my investigative perspective on the matter. Will any of this yield actionable data? Considering every single guarantee flies straight out the window the second a perimeter goes unprotected. Defense attorneys will inevitably swarm this case like sharks, arguing to the jury with claims like, literally anyone wandering past the property might have fabricated the evidence, ruined the samples, or tampered with the scene entirely, turning this ordeal into an utter disaster. Nancy, it is an absolute catastrophe through and through, especially considering the broadcast footage we reviewed just moments ago from a partner network. Let me clarify exactly why both myself and Joe Scott Morgan are absolutely boiling over with frustration. This evening we are witnessing catastrophic procedural failures. We are watching investigators butcher the preservation of a crucial forensic environment. We recognize viable threads dangling in the wind that could provide massive breakthroughs, supplying hard proof regarding the monster who abducted Nancy Guthrie. Rest assured, we will battle relentlessly until the bitter end, throwing punches from the absolute lowest trenches if necessary. This relentless pursuit of justice explains exactly why our entire broadcasting team remains furious, aggressive, and fiercely dedicated to uncovering the truth. Shifting focus to the rear entrance for a second. Joe Scott Morgan, I actually need you to analyze Savannah's recent statement regarding those crimson stains. Pay close attention here. The victim lacked the physical ability to simply stroll away, considering her excruciating level of agony. Right? Given the severe spinal issues she suffered from, a casual stroll was physically impossible, while those entryways were discovered completely unlatched. Exactly. Coupled with the horrific crimson puddles coating the porch and a security device violently torn straight from its mount. Precisely. Meaning her explicit testimony confirms the presence of biological fluids staining the entryway. That specific gruesome detail was witnessed firsthand at dawn. However, spotting outdoor stains hardly eliminates the guarantee of splattered interior carpets, which an intruder would have undeniably trampled across. Both the attacker and Mrs. Guthrie likely dragged that mess through the house, potentially followed by subsequent contamination from Annie or her spouse, or perhaps oblivious officers trampling the scene. Yet those fibers might still hold the key, as shown on today's internet stream, so jump in. Joe, absolutely. The contamination possibilities are endless when analyzing woven materials like a standard floor rug, since the fibers are incredibly dense. Consequently, those microscopic biological droplets sink violently deep into the twisted threading of the fabric itself. One wrong move with microscopic crime scene clues, and your entire case collapses. Detectives absolutely must tread lightly when extracting or artificially amplifying those fragile microscopic details for laboratory analysis, primarily because we are currently juggling two distinct forensic approaches here. The primary focus demands properly evaluating any cellular material or bodily fluids trapped deep within those carpet fibers. Following that, analysts must interpret the precise geometry of any crimson stains left behind to reconstruct the violent event. Essentially, this boils down to extensive macroscopic imaging combined with rigorous chemical testing back at headquarters. Checking in with our phenomenal Fox News partners, let me grab Morgan for a couple rapid-fire points. Starting with that wedged-open rear entryway. Could the handle yield microscopic clues? And did the perpetrator wedge it open using a heavy stone? Would genetic material survive there? Or maybe they jammed a stool underneath it using their bare fingers. Were the suspects completely covered up, leaving us with absolutely nothing to test? For crying out loud, whenever Savannah mentions a deliberately wedged entryway, my mind instantly shifts to the physical exterior of the barrier, because it implies far more than simply remaining unlatched. In reality, that specific phrasing strongly suggests an external object held the passageway ajar. Correct. Consequently, my brain immediately hunts for latent smudges alongside any stray microscopic droplets capable of yielding a genetic profile. Whether the culprit utilized a heavy stone, a stale pipe, or perhaps some random timber remains a total mystery. Moreover, detectives must expand their focus significantly beyond those initial surface observations. They need to hunt for microscopic remnants plastered across the latch or frame, exactly where a perpetrator would grab and shove to force the barrier ajar before securing it. Let us seriously entertain the distinct possibility that an intruder forcefully levered the entry point off its hinges. However, Official reports deny any structural damage, which raises a massive red flag for my analytical mindset. Could a stealthy infiltrator have bypassed the deadbolt using specialized tools like we discussed previously? Did an intruder manipulate the hardware? Or was it habitually unsecured by a homeowner experiencing a false sense of suburban safety? Perhaps she carelessly forgot to lock up. According to our aviation crew, you hit the nail on the head. Joe Scott. Since rumors suggest Guthrie frequently neglected to secure her rear patio, leaving multiple viable theories on the table. Hold up. Could you please repeat your previous thought regarding whether the framework sustained invisible gouges from a burglar's crowbar? Did investigators uncover microscopic scratches surrounding the primary cylinder casing? I mean the exact spot where metal meets the tumblers, to see if an intruder applied intense physical leverage. Could a hefty suspect have rammed it inward? Or does the hinge mechanism require yanking the barrier backward? Every single variable matters tremendously. Nancy, because a seasoned detective must obsessively evaluate these environmental mechanics during fieldwork, leaving absolutely no stone unturned is mandatory. Welcome everyone. Nancy Grace here, inviting you to catch our thrilling true crime broadcast premiering on Fox 1. Whenever shocking legal drama unfolds, our team uncovers the raw facts directly for you. Expect explosive revelations and solutions to baffling mysteries, ranging from front-page scandals to obscure tragedies uncovered exclusively through our in-depth interrogations. We feature devastated relatives, relentless detectives, seasoned experts, and confidential insiders tied to the case. Track America's most captivating courtroom battles alongside our crew, featuring continuous live commentary and instant legal breakdowns. Catch my exclusive program over on Fox 1, because I absolutely cannot wait to share these investigations with you all. Pivoting to another complication for Eicher, considering how aerospace surveillance played a pivotal role during the recent Rittenhouse trial. Specifically, thermal optics proved crucial. So please break down how those heat signatures ultimately illuminated reality during that chaotic night. The massive hurdle lies in timing those orbital passes perfectly, which makes it incredibly rare to capture overhead footage exactly as an offense occurs. Consequently, direct imagery fails us 99% of the time. However, during that incredibly rare 1% window where an orbiting machine, unmanned aerial vehicle, or mapping aircraft happens to be recording, you might just get lucky enough to catch the unfolding tragedy. Unfortunately, countless environmental obstacles easily sabotage those visual captures, especially dense overcast skies or severe localized weather events rolling through. Orbital cameras simply cannot pierce through atmospheric interference to monitor terrestrial activities. Let me interject. Listen, Ika. Hearing a million reasons why we cannot succeed drives me absolutely crazy. Because I demand actionable solutions instead of roadblocks. Obviously, vapor heavily obscures aerial visibility, and despite merely being an attorney, I completely grasp basic meteorological interference. I fully comprehend those limitations. So explain the viable workarounds, since I desperately need concrete evidence right now. 59 days into this nightmare, and the trail for Nancy Guthrie is freezing over. I am absolutely fed up and demanding some solid truth right now. Stop handing me excuses about dead ends. Eicher, give me a shred of hope here. Tell me exactly how we crack this wide open. Look, I am entirely on your side with this. Every single person working this case is feeling the exact same mounting anger. The reality is, the feds always try to run down every possible lead, but we must acknowledge the harsh truth of the process. Chasing down this specific caliber of proof requires a massive stroke of good fortune just to get the stars to align. Then map out the blueprint for catching that lucky break. Walk me through the exact steps for tracking down those thermal satellite sweeps, assuming they even exist. Believe me, I fully understand that bad weather could ruin everything. Just point me toward a fighting chance. Give me a solid, perhaps, because this feels exactly like that initial security footage fiasco. Recall how local law enforcement swore up and down that the tapes were completely useless. Investigators must chase down every single tiny clue relentlessly until the truth finally surfaces, which is exactly how that footage emerged. Therefore, we need to track down any orbital cameras or unmanned aircraft hovering over the zone during the abduction, praying they captured something crucial. Leaving things up to fate is not an option. You have to claw your way forward aggressively until that undeniable proof is firmly in your grasp. Give it to me straight right now. Are federal agents actually pursuing this angle, or is it already on their radar? Absolutely. it would be a top priority. I utilized those exact tactics during my own investigations, shifting gears over to Dave Mack now. Bring me fully up to speed regarding this mystery suspect car. My sources indicate we are actively hunting down an ash-colored sport utility vehicle or a similar truck. Our authorities specifically zeroing in on a metallic or charcoal rig. There is a very specific reason why I need this clarified immediately. My mind instantly jumps to an entirely separate dump site. Spill every single detail you have regarding this mysterious ride. Right from day one of this manhunt, detectives have been scrambling to pin down any suspicious cars linked to the area. The suspect list recently shrank down to just a pair of rides, starting off with a pale transport van. The second option perfectly matches your description of a metallic or charcoal-colored heavy-duty rig. Ultimately, we have two distinct automobiles spotted cruising the vicinity that completely lack any logical explanation for being there. Neither of those suspicious rides can be traced back to local homeowners or any visiting acquaintances whatsoever. This story leaves us with a deep and emotional reminder. Danger does not always break in. It is sometimes quietly let in. The idea that multiple people had access to the home, from contractors to service workers, shows how easily trust can become a vulnerability if it is not paired with awareness. One of the most important lessons is the power of responsibility. Every action matters: locking a door, verifying who enters your space, or questioning something that feels off. These small choices may seem insignificant in the moment, but they can become the difference between safety and tragedy. We must learn to take our personal security seriously without becoming fearful of the world around us. This case also highlights how justice depends on diligence. Investigators, communities, and even ordinary citizens play a role in uncovering truth. When evidence is overlooked or time is lost, it can delay answers for those who are suffering. That is why attention to detail, persistance, and accountability are so critical. Above all, this story is about humanity. Behind every headline is a real person, a family waiting, and a life that matters deeply. Let it inspire us to be more careful, more aware, and more compassionate. Protect your space, value your instincts, and never ignore the quiet warning signs that something may not be right.